Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is November 29th. On this day in 1981, Natalie Wood, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, vanished from her yacht near California's Catalina Island during a weekend getaway. Hours later, her body was found floating face down in the water. She was just 43 years old. What began as a heartbreaking accident quickly became one of the most talked about mysteries in Hollywood. Over the next 4 decades, shifting witness accounts, new evidence, and a changed death certificate would keep the case open and the questions alive. Today, we're talking about the tragic death of Natalie Wood. Let's get started. By the fall of 1981, Natalie Wood had lived nearly her entire life in front of a camera. From Miracle on 34th Street as a child to Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story as an adult, she had grown up on screen, and in the process had become one of the most recognizable actresses in America. Off-screen, her life was just as closely followed. She had married actor Robert Wagner in 1957, divorced him, and then remarried him in 1972. They were raising their daughter Courtney along with Natalie's daughter from a previous marriage, Natasha. On Thanksgiving 1981, with a break from filming her latest movie, Brainstorm, Natalie and Robert decided to spend the weekend aboard their yacht, the Splendour. Joining them were actor Christopher Walken, her co-star in Brainstorm, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. The four set off for Catalina Island on Friday, November 27th. They anchored near the quiet village of Two Harbors, which was a favorite spot for boaters. But what started as a peaceful holiday weekend would soon take a tragic turn. Over the next day or two, the group spent time drinking and socializing, both on the yacht and at nearby Harbor Reef Bar. Witnesses said that the atmosphere was relaxed, at least at first. But things reportedly changed Saturday night. According to later accounts, an argument broke out on board. Robert and Christopher clashed over Natalie's career. Robert, according to his memoir, felt that Christopher was encouraging Natalie to focus more on acting and less on her family. Walken later downplayed the exchange, but it definitely seems as though there was some tension on board. At the time, Captain Dennis Davern told police that everything had been calm, but in the years that followed, he changed his story. In interviews and in his book, Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendour, Davern claimed that a serious fight broke out between Natalie and Robert that night. According to him, voices were raised, objects may have been thrown, and at some point, Natalie left the deck area. What happened next remains the most contested part of the story. Sometime around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, November 29th, the Splendour sent out a distress call. Natalie was missing, and so was the yacht's inflatable dinghy. Search crews mobilized quickly. At daybreak, the dinghy was spotted beached near Blue Cavern Point, about a mile from where the yacht had anchored. Not long after, Natalie's body was found floating in the water, about 200 yards from the same spot. She was wearing a nightgown, socks, and a heavy jacket. Initial reports from the Los Angeles Times framed it as a tragic accident. It appeared that Natalie had left the yacht alone and slipped into the cold water while trying to either get in or out of the dinghy. But even back then, there were doubts. Some boaters anchored nearby claimed that they heard a woman crying for help in the night. It's never been clear whether those cries were reported right away or what, if anything, could have changed if they had been. The coroner's report, written by Dr. Thomas Noguchi, found that Natalie had been drinking that night. Her blood alcohol level was about 0.14%. She had also taken a painkiller and a motion sickness pill, which could have intensified the effects of the alcohol. Bruises were found on her arms and legs, along with a scrape on her cheek. Now, at the time, these were seen as consistent with trying to get into or out of the dinghy, or perhaps they could have occurred while her body was in the water. Her official cause of death was accidental drowning, with hypothermia listed as a factor. But Natalie's sister, Lana Wood, never accepted that explanation. She insisted that Natalie was terrified of dark, open water and wasn't a strong swimmer, so she never would have taken the dinghy out alone at night. Still, the case was closed as an accident, and it stayed that way for the next 30 years. In 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department announced that it was reopening the investigation into Natalie Wood's death, citing new information. Much of it came from Captain Davern, who now said he'd lied in his original statements. According to Davern, there had been a fight that night, a loud thud, and then silence. He said that Wagner delayed calling for help and even stopped him from turning on the floodlights or searching right away. In 2012, the coroner's office updated Natalie's death certificate, changing the cause from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. A 10-page addendum to the autopsy concluded that some of the bruises may have happened before she went into the water, which raised the possibility of a struggle. The report highlighted injuries on her right forearm, left wrist, right knee, a scratch on her neck, and a superficial scrape on her forehead. Then, in 2018, investigators officially named Robert Wagner as a person of interest in his wife's death. After all, he had been the last person seen with Natalie before she disappeared. Wagner continued to deny any involvement and declined to be re-interviewed by detectives in the case. To this day, no criminal charges have ever been filed. Now, more than 40 years later, Natalie Wood's death remains officially unsolved. Her sister continues to speak out, insisting that there's more to the story. However, her daughters have publicly supported their father and were involved in the 2020 HBO documentary, Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, which focuses on Natalie's life, not just the circumstances surrounding her death. What's clear is this: Natalie Wood had been drinking. She wasn't wearing a life jacket, and her coat, once soaked, may have pulled her under. But there are still unanswered questions about the bruises, the timeline, and the changed stories. These lingering mysteries have kept the case open, at least in the court of public opinion. Natalie Wood once said she feared dark water. On November 29, 1981, she died in it. Every re-examination since has added detail, but not certainty. And so, Natalie Wood's death stands at the intersection of accident and suspicion. It's a case where the official record has shifted, but the truth of what happened in those final minutes on the Splendour is still known only to the people who were there, and perhaps to no one at all. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Natalie's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!